Welcome to the Data Privacy and Information Security Awareness Training. Online privacy is becoming an increasingly important issue, and so is the concern about the safety of the personal information that is available in the public space. Through this module, let us understand about information security, data protection and privacy, prevalent laws and regulations, as also the practices that we can adopt to keep Dockwity safe and secure. As we touch upon the various topics, we will mesh in nuances from various regulations and/or laws for better context and comprehension. Okay. Before we start with Module 1, let's review some ground rules. You may pause the training for a minute to check these out. Firstly, please go through all the modules in the training. At the end of the program, you will be required to complete an evaluation. Passing score is greater than equals 70%. If you are not able to clear the assessment, please review the module and retake the assessment. A series of policies have been made available for you to visit as an extension of this training. The link to these will be shared during the program. Please go through these policies to enhance your know-how on the organization's security posture. Lastly, post this session, please download the Dockwity Acceptable Use Policy, study it, sign it, and send a PDF copy to the HR team. Let's start with our first module, Data Protection and Data Privacy. So, what's all the hype about? What data do we have that is of value, and why should we protect it? As an organization, we depend on the trust of our existing and prospective customers, clients, business partners, vendors, and employees. Protecting privacy of these key stakeholders therefore becomes important, and by doing so we mitigate risks of costly incidents, reputational harm, regulatory penalties, and solidify our relationships and our reputation. At Dockwity, we are protecting the data available on our platforms, which could be that of the HCPs, of the patients who are interacting with our registered HCPs, or of the pharma clients who share their information with us. We all as employees have a key role to play to ensure these assets are safeguarded. Let's now see who else, other than our stakeholders, stand to benefit if we do not have appropriate technical or organizational measures in place to secure our data. Cyber criminals, fraudsters, or organized gangs with malicious intent may use personal data to defraud or harass users. Competitors may use or sell data without user consent, affect our business and customers by way of unwanted advertising gimmicks. Hacktivists, who are politically motivated parties that do not agree with our value systems or practices. Nation-states involved in cyber warfare are some examples of who may adversely impact us. Let's now understand through an acronym, CIA, why having a security posture is important for us at Dockwity, and what is it that we can lose, as organization, in the absence of adequate controls or in an event of a breach. CIA, or confidentiality, integrity, and availability, form the three pillars that safeguard our information security. By ensuring our adherence to the governing laws and regulations, and by no unauthorized or unlawful processing, by preventing accidental loss, destruction, or damage, we thwart the loss of confidentiality and integrity. This safeguards the interests of our stakeholders, makes sure continued functioning of business operations to meet our contractual obligations, and helps avoid reputation damages and monetary fines. Moving further, let's get familiar with data protection, data privacy, and data security. Data protection is one of the key challenges of digital transformation. By protecting data, companies can prevent data breaches, damage to reputation, and financial loss, can better manage customer trust, and ensure regulatory requirements are met. Data privacy and data protection, the two terms often used interchangeably, have an important difference. While data privacy defines who has access to data, data protection provides tools and policies to restrict access to this data. The underlying principles of data protection are data availability and data management. The principle of data availability protects data by ensuring it is available under any circumstances, through operational data backup, and business continuity and disaster recovery. If data is compromised, inaccessible, missing, or incomplete, it can adversely affect an organization and its stakeholders. Data management can be viewed under two important segments: data lifecycle management, and information lifecycle management. There are three broad stages of data lifecycle management. The first stage is data acquisition and creation. This stage involves creating and naming a file, classifying it for easy retrieval, and determining its access controls. This is followed by data retention and protection. Once the data has been acquired, it needs to be stored and maintained. This includes ensuring data backups, safety through protections such as strong encryption, physical server security, and accuracy. The final stage is that of data retirement, when data is no longer useful and needs to be responsibly archived or destroyed. Information lifecycle management. The other key aspect of data management comprises of strategy, process, and technology to effectively manage information. It involves the valuation, cataloging, and protection of information assets from various sources, to prevent application and user errors, malware or ransomware attacks, system crashes or malfunctions, and hardware failures. While data lifecycle management is concerned with aspects such as a file's name, its size, the number of times it was edited, etc., information lifecycle management goes further to consider specific data, such as fetching all possible files that consist of a customer's contact number. Data management, hence, helps govern the data a business generates, in a consistent and safe manner. Data privacy generally means the ability of a person to determine for themselves when, how, and to what extent personal information about them is shared with or communicated to others. It is typically applied to personal health information, PHI, and to personally identifiable information, PII, which includes one's financial information, medical records, social security or ID numbers, names, birth dates, and contact information. As internet usage has increased over the years, so has the importance of data privacy. Websites, applications, and social media platforms often need to collect and store personal data about users in order to provide services. Without adequate safeguards around the data collected, a data breach may occur, compromising users' privacy. With robust data protection practices, we can demonstrate to our customers and users that we can be trusted with their personal data. Personal data, a term that we have already heard of, is any information relating to an identified or identifiable natural person, who in legal narration is called the data subject. So, what is PII or personally identifiable information? It is any information, such as an individual's name, date and place of birth, mother's maiden name, social security number, biometric records, etc., which can be linked or used to distinguish or trace their identity alone, or when combined with other personal or identifying information. PII is considered sensitive, which if lost, compromised, or disclosed without authorization, could result in harm, embarrassment, inconvenience, or unfairness to an individual, such as one's medical, educational, financial, or employment information. Another segregation to be understood is the special category data. This is the kind of information that is concerning an individual's health, is their genetic or biometric data, is concerning one's sexual orientation or activity, that reveals one's racial or ethnic origin, political opinions, religious or philosophical beliefs, trade union membership. Being a healthcare platform, with access to the personal data of the registering HCPs, and to the health and purchase history of the onboarding patients, it becomes critical for us to safeguard and secure this information. Let's now move on to Module 2, Data Processing. Now that we have a fair understanding of what data protection and privacy entail, let's review and introduce some crucial terms that we will come across throughout this awareness program. Processing means any operation or set of operations that is performed on personal data or on sets of personal data. When good information security practices are adopted at work, effective processing implies collecting only as much data as is required for smooth functioning of operations, obtaining data subjects' consent, storing, restricting or erasing data as per agreed norms, regulations, disseminating or disclosing data only to the extent required, denying access to the organization's information to unauthorized personnel. We will cover this in more detail in subsequent sections. Let's understand this with an example. To seamlessly process payroll, an organization is required to collect and store relevant financial details such as the Social Security number, tax ID, saving account number and other documents of the employee, depending on the laws of the land. While this is an information mostly collected directly from the employees, the organization is liable to provide full visibility of the personal data that the payroll team and the business holds and processes. Let's touch upon some affiliated terms. The first is a controller. This could be a natural or legal person, public authority, agency or other body which, alone or jointly with others, determines the purposes and means of processing the personal data. The second term is a processor. This could be a natural person or body, who processes data as instructed by the controller. Continuing with the payroll example, at most of its locations, Docquity uses the contracted services of a third-party vendor to process staff payroll. In this scenario, Docquity is the controller, and the vendor is the processor of the personal data. On the other hand, in case of our platform, where the data of the registering HCPs is governed and managed by Docquity itself, the organization becomes both the controller and the processor of the data. As we learned earlier, a data subject is a person who can be identified directly or indirectly using different identifiers. According to GDPR and most personal data protection acts, all individuals have the right to ask an organization what personal data they hold about them and to obtain a copy of that data, as well as other supplementary information. The data subjects can include existing employees, former employees or even job applicants. The purpose of the right of access is to help individuals understand what personal data is being held about them, how and why an employer, or former employer, is using this data, and to ensure that their data is being processed lawfully. Data Protection Acts at the same time set out multiple exemptions, including where personal data is processed for crime and taxation-related purposes, where data is subject to legal professional privilege, or where data is processed for management, planning purposes and complying with a request could prejudice the conduct of the business. Now that we understand data processing, let's move on to recognize aspects of data classification.
Data classification helps determine what amount of safeguarding and security controls are necessary for the data. Here are some questions to ponder on. First and foremost, ask what information is collected from the customers, clients, vendors, and other business entities. What information and data does the company create, like files, spreadsheets, customer profiles and receipts? What's the security or sensitivity level of that data? What parties need to access this data and how frequently? What digital record keeping does the company do? And for how long does it keep documents of each category? Data classification can ultimately help us to protect the integrity, availability, and confidentiality of data, safeguard personally identifying information, and proprietary business information by adding business context to applications, such as by identifying applications that handle sensitive data and define stricter security requirements. Stay compliant with regulations, guidelines, and laws. Determine who has access to the data, how often and by what means. Establish retention period and security measures to deploy. Preserve client trust. Promote a culture of data security. Uphold the brand and company reputation. Save time and money by focusing appropriate controls.
Now, let's check out some typical data classification levels that we follow. Public. Much of the information held by Docquity of this classification is freely available to the public via established publication methods, that is, the corporate website. The next level is protected information, which is relatively private in nature, either to an individual or to the organization and, while its loss or disclosure is unlikely to result in significant consequences, it would be undesirable. Some examples could be internal information security and data protection policies, expense claims submitted by the employees, or invoices raised by contractors. The third level is restricted. This is information, such as the list of HCPs, customer contacts, employee agreements, if disclosed to unauthorized persons would result in significant embarrassment to Docquity and may have possible legal consequences. When classifying information as restricted, remember to check if its unauthorized disclosure would affect relations with other organizations adversely, cause substantial distress to individuals, cause financial loss, loss of earning potential, facilitate improper gain or advantage for individuals or companies, Prejudice the investigation or facilitate a crime. Breach statutory restrictions or the confidence of the third parties involved. Undermine the proper management of the organization and its operations. Disadvantage the organization in commercial or policy negotiations with others. The final level is confidential. This is reserved for highly sensitive information, loss or wrong disclosure of which would cause major reputation and financial loss to Docquity. This could be disclosure of financial results without management's authorization, information on product or services pre-launch, system or security configuration details, etc. When classifying as confidential, think if unauthorized disclosure would materially damage relations, such as through formal protests, with other organizations. Prejudice individual security or liberty. Cause damage to the operational effectiveness or security of the organization. Work against the organization's economic and commercial interests or undermine the financial viability of major organizations. Impede the investigation or facilitate the commission of serious crime. Shut down or disrupt business operations. Here are some data classification best practices to remember. Create a data inventory. Identify and classify data to ensure each type is appropriately protected. Label each sensitive data set to make the process efficient and accurate. Conduct a data risk assessment. Determine contractual privacy and confidentiality requirements, including those related to company policies and compliance regulations, and define data classification objectives in coordination with relevant stakeholder. Next, establish standard security measures by defining policy-based controls for each classification label. And finally, remember data is dynamic and requires ongoing monitoring and maintenance.
Let us now understand document control, which refers to the process of managing documents within an organization in a systematic and organized manner. It involves creating, storing, organizing, tracking, and distributing documents to ensure that the right version of a document is available to the right people at the right time. The procedure for the control of documented information, which is available on the company's HRMS, establishes guidelines for the creation, approval, distribution, revision, and retention of documented procedures. This helps to ensure consistency, compliance, and proper governance. It means that all documented information must be readily identifiable and available. It should be dated and authorized by a designated person, be legible and periodically reviewed for accuracy, relevance, and version. Availability to all concerned parties is imperative. The documents should be promptly withdrawn when obsolete and retained, where required for legal or knowledge or preservation purposes. Let's now understand the ALCOA, a set of data integrity principles used in regulated industries like pharmaceuticals, healthcare, biotechnology, and medical devices to ensure data accuracy, reliability, and compliance with regulatory bodies. Attributable. As per the principles of good documentation practices, or GDP, data should clearly demonstrate who observed and recorded it. When created as a unique user, the electronic records show credible audit trails, showing who entered or modified data. Similarly, signed and dated paper-based records show logical evidence and trail. A reliable system prevents unauthorized access or changes to records. L is for legible. This implies that data should be easy to understand, be permanently recorded, and original entries should be preserved. Handwritten records must be clear and stored properly. The question one must ask is, can this data be retrieved and understood years later without loss or misinterpretation? C stands for contemporaneous. It refers to the credibility of data. Having date and timestamps create faith and reliability. It means systems must prevent backdating or post-dated changes, such as a website collects explicit cookie content with a timestamp before tracking user behavior, or a mobile app securely logs date and time of consent or its revocation to form basis for processing that data. The next attribute of ALCOA is original. This implies that any raw data and source documents should be preserved in their original format. If copies are used, they should be verified true copies with timestamps and metadata. Scanned copies or transcribed data must be validated against original.
The last attribute is for accurate. All data entries must undergo a review and an approval process. Calculations, formulas, and reports should be verified for accuracy. At every step of our work we deal with documentation. Let us now briefly delve into the nomenclature defined for document creation at Dockety. Please check the procedure for the control of documented information for detail. AA stands for applicability. This has two categories, where our E is used for group documents, and the country codes attributed by SG, PH, IN, ID, TH, and so on and so forth for the country-specific documents. DC stands for department code. Specifics can be checked in the procedure document available on the H or MS. DDD is short for document type such as a process, procedure, guidelines or one of the other defined types. XXX denotes unique document number. This is followed by a logical title to the document. VN stands for version number. And SS is for status, where DR is for draft and FN is to be used for the final document. Let us understand with an example. If the HR department wants to create an onboarding policy at the organization level, the naming convention would follow as RE for group. Since it's a document for the human resources function, the department code would be HR, and the document type would be POL, short for policy. Now let us assume this is the first policy, created by the H or the document number, would be 001. Next, we give the document a logical title, such as Dockety Onboarding Policy in this case. Being the first, final version, the nomenclature would further be 00FN. When the team reviews this policy the next time, and it's substantial change, the version would become 01FN. The review. If the HR now decides to create a form for managing training attendance records, the nomenclature will read as R.E. HR. FR 001 Training Attendance Record 00FN. Notice, the document number here is again 01. This is because of the difference in the document type. The first example was a policy and the second is a form. Similar application can be done for country-specific documents.
Remember to review the documents at the least annually, or as and when there is a change or update in the process.
Moving on to Module 5. Let's check out the prevalent laws and regulations that govern us.
In May 2018, the EU enacted a series of laws, the General Data Protection Regulation or GDPR, which oblige companies to process data in a much more transparent way, and at the same time grants individuals far greater control over how their personal information is used. A training such as this educates us as employees on how to respect individual rights, understand organizations' security policies, protect against cyber attacks and the mishandling of customer data. Other PDPAs or Personal Data Protection Acts that may govern us are listed and will depend on the country of our operations. The Healthcare Insurance Portability and Accountability Act or HIPAA, a landmark legislation that changed the U.S. healthcare system forever, was enacted into law on August 21, 1996. The rules handed control to the patient over how their personal information is processed and maintained, while also encouraging healthcare institutions to embrace and migrate to digital technology. Although we are currently not operating in the U.S., let's check out some best practices or key tips for HIPAA-compliant telemedicine. Use trusted vendors. They must have measures to secure protected health information or PHI and be willing to sign a business associate agreement. Secure data. Make sure the safeguards ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of PHI. HIPAA compliance limits PHI access to the minimum necessary required to complete a job. And to facilitate an early detection of breaches, PHI access is tracked for each user. Lastly, it is ensured the staff working on relevant tools is well trained. GDPR is best associated with concepts of accountability and transparency. Let's now understand its 6 privacy principles, how they uphold and maintain the two concepts, and why they are relevant for us. Principle 1: Lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. It implies that a controller needs to identify and state the lawful basis for each data category they process. The 6 lawful bases are consent, contract, legal obligation, vital interests, public task, and legitimate interests. Fairness is used in relation to good faith and means acting with integrity. Transparency indicates that the data subjects know what our processes include. This organizations cover mostly in their privacy policies, and include aspects such as the categories of data collected, the lawful basis for data collection, how one intends to use the data, for how long the data will be kept, details of third-party relationships and whether the data leaves the EU. Now, let's check out the second principle, purpose limitation. It means the data is collected for specified, explicit and legitimate purposes and is not further processed in a manner that is incompatible with those purposes, such as, for rendering our services in DocQuity Clinic, collection of HCP's license and certification details is essential to ensure proper healthcare to the patients coming onto the platform. In comparison, the currency of HCP license is not relevant for carrying services within the DocQuity platform, and hence not necessary.
Moving on to the third principle, data minimization. It implies collection of data that is adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary in relation to the purposes for which it is processed.
This means that if a business's core processing activities can be carried out without a specific data, then that set of data should never be collected. The principle also requires one to destroy or anonymize data that it no longer needs. The next principle is accuracy. The principle requires the data remains valid and fit for the purpose it was collected for, and that reasonable steps are taken to ensure its correctness by rectifying or deleting any inaccurate data without delay. The fifth principle is storage limitation. It means that the data is kept in a form which permits identification of data subjects, for no longer than is necessary for the purposes for which the personal information is processed. In order to comply with the storage limitation principle, a business must ensure that it knows what personal data it holds, why it holds this data, can justify the retention duration, erases or makes anonymous the data that is no longer required, and has a process for requests to have personal data erased. Please note, in accordance with Article 89 of GDPR, personal information can be stored for longer periods, if it is processed solely for archiving in the public interest, for scientific or historical research or for statistical purpose. Integrity and confidentiality is the sixth principle. It means the data is processed in a manner that ensures appropriate security of personal information, that is, protection from unauthorized or unlawful processing and from loss, destruction and damage. To ensure compliance with this principle, a business needs to determine the level of security that is required, have a security policy and ensure its adherence, have basic technical controls to reduce cyber attacks, use encryption when appropriate, understand the CIA of the personal data it collects and processes, ensure an appropriate backup process is in place if the personal data is lost, conduct regular reviews of its security measures for efficacy and adjust procedures as needed.
Last of all is the overarching principle of accountability and governance, according to which, an organization must recognize its responsibility to comply with the requirements of the six principles, and be able to demonstrate its compliance against them.
Irrespective of the functional responsibilities you own at DocQuity, you are responsible for ensuring that any transfer of personal data across borders is legal, secure, and ethical. A cross-border data transfer occurs when personal data is moved from one country to another, whether physically or virtually. It includes any remote access, sharing, storage, or processing of personal data by entities, servers, or personnel located in another country. For instance, an employee in Singapore accesses a customer database stored in India, or patient data from Indonesia is sent to a third-party analytics firm in Japan. Cross-border data transfers raise significant legal, reputational, and security implications. Countries have different privacy laws, and personal data transferred outside a country may lose the legal protections it had at origin. A cross-border breach or misuse can seriously damage public trust and brand value. Data moving across borders increases exposure to cybersecurity threats and government surveillance, especially when the data resides in jurisdictions with weaker data protection laws, broad government access powers or limited or no accountability frameworks. Managing compliance across jurisdictions also adds complexity and cost that may range from maintaining privacy notices in multiple languages, adhering to local breach notification laws and response timelines, or navigating conflicting regulatory obligations. Here are best practices for cross-border data transfers, designed to ensure legal compliance, protect personal data, and maintain user trust across multiple jurisdictions. Follow the prescribed security controls, make encrypted transfers, do not flout the granted access controls or endpoint protections. Transfer only necessary personal data. Anonymize or pseudonymize data where possible before transfer. Avoid special category data, seek permissions. Ensure data subjects are aware of what data is being transferred, to whom, where, and why. What rights they have, such as access, erasure, objection, etc. Can they opt out where appropriate? Use strong contractual safeguards. Consider local jurisdictional requirements. Use the correct legal basis for transfer mechanism, such as based on adequacy decision, where a regulator designates that a destination country offers a level of data protection equivalent to domestic law, allowing transfers without additional safeguards. Under standard contractual clauses, SCCs, model contractual clauses, MCCs, where pre-approved contractual terms bind the exporter and importer of data to uphold privacy safeguards and data rights. Based on explicit, informed, and freely given consent. Under binding corporate rules for intragroup transfers, or under derogations or limited exceptions such as for national security. Consult with leadership, legal and/or compliance teams to avoid any misjudgment and support them with transfer impact assessment exercise.
Let's summarize what we learned so far. For staying GDPR and PDPA compliant, read and follow DocQuity's information security and data protection policy. Remember to process data subject access requests promptly. Recognize the importance of protecting personal data, use it for the defined purposes, be fair and transparent, keep personal data confidential, consider data protection in new developments, and lastly, handle breaches professionally. Let's now look at the various ways in which we can protect our assets, at the very fore of which comes the management's commitment and our adherence to the cause. Adoption of industry standards such as ISO 27001 and BS 10012 help us establish strong controls and policies against assessed risks that aid against information security threats, vulnerabilities and attacks. Remember, while managers play a critical role in developing an appropriate security culture, it is every employee's responsibility to stay aware, comply with the policies and procedures, and consistently support the company in enhancing its processes. Let's now touch upon ISO 27001 and understand what makes it an important industry standard. By adopting the standard, an organization demonstrates to its stakeholders and customers that it is committed to managing information securely and can be trusted. The ISO/IEC 27001 standard specifies the requirements for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an organization's information security management systems. These requirements being generic, makes its adoption possible for all organizations regardless of their industry, type, or size. To address global cybersecurity challenges and to improve digital trust, a new and improved version of the standard was published in October 2022. The new standard that was launched on October 25, 2022, provides a standardized way to sort and filter controls against different criteria. Here are some attributes it focuses on, in relation to a business.
Another important security system that's relevant for us is the Personal Information Management System or PIMS. DocQuity was certified by BSI, a renowned body, against BS 10012, 2017 standard in 2021. The standard, written in recognition with the GDPR, was approved by the European Parliament in April 2016. It enables organizations with secure frameworks and good practices to maintain and manage the personal information in course of their business. A good PIMS helps a business to Protect its revenue flow. Meet its obligations to interested parties. Preserve its reputation. Protect against legal action and prevents PII and confidential information from falling into wrong hands. Please revisit the 6 privacy principles of GDPR, addressed earlier in this awareness program, to correlate better. To summarize, having standards and controls help us as an organization ensure awareness and commitment, the ability to better manage risks, and thereby reduce the likelihood of breaches or disruptions. This, in turn, helps us stay compliant with relevant laws and regulations, reduce the likelihood of breaches or disruptions, and hence maintain stakeholder confidence, market credibility, and protect our reputation. There are various ways in which we as employees can support the organization, and ensure its information at all fronts stays safe and secure. Let's touch upon some such parameters in this section. Physical security starts with securing our perimeters, and by enforcing strict entry controls through barriers such as the access card, manned reception to filter authorized personnel, and restricting others. While the organization ensures our safety against external and environmental threats such as fire, earthquakes, by making sure adequate provisions are designed and applied, as employees it is our responsibility to support. This, we can do by clearly displaying our official iCards for ease of identification, by keeping doors closed to secure areas, registering our guests and keeping them restricted to common areas, and by not tailgating or sharing our access cards. The next aspect is equipment security. This control under ISO 27001 requires protecting equipment and reducing the risks from environmental threats, hazards, and opportunities for unauthorized access. The organization must take necessary steps to protect equipment or supporting utilities from power failures and other disruptions, protect cables carrying data, or supporting information services from interception or damage, ensure sensitive and licensed software is removed or securely overwritten prior to disposal or reassignment of equipment. So, how can we support? Never leave your device, important paperwork or storage media unattended. Do not copy the data to remote computing device. Install encryption on mobile media such as disks, thumb drives. Keep the device locked away when not in use. Never take equipment, sensitive information, or software off-site without prior authorization. Do not allow anyone at home, or otherwise to use your business device. Use it for official purposes only. Lock your device when not in use. Resort to enhanced security parameters when in a public place, or in a vehicle. Ensure no one is peeping into your work devices. This could compromise passwords, or sensitive information that you could be working on. Let us now review the importance of access and of passwords. A strong password is key to protecting information from being compromised. A few tips when creating your passwords. Prioritize length and complexity. Use upper and lowercase letters, numbers and special characters. Make your password random and unique. Do not include personal information. To further strengthen security, never share user accounts or passwords. Avoid writing or storing credentials in places where they can be easily accessed. If you use many applications, create different passwords for each system, and leverage a password manager. Other best practices to stay secure are the use of two-factor authentication, adding alerts, and regular reviewing for unauthorized transactions. Your official email is for work-related tasks only, and must not be used for personal interactions. Be careful and discreet when sending authorized, confidential or sensitive information. Encrypt or password secure the information to ensure its integrity. Using spam filters and antivirus software as per company policy help ensure we are secured and are alerted when trying to send information to outside domains. Be aware of phishing emails. Phishing is a type of social engineering where an attacker sends a fraudulent or spoofed message designed to trick a human victim into revealing sensitive information, or to deploy malicious software on the victim's infrastructure, like a ransomware. What makes phishing so popular among cybercriminals is the ease with which it can be customized to make use of any event or circumstance to target users with new scams. Here are some types of phishing attacks.
Deceptive phishing is where an attacker attempts to obtain confidential information from the victims, such as a fake email from a bank asking to click a link and verify account details. Spear phishing, another form that targets specific individuals. These are customized and appear more authentic. This is often the first step used to penetrate a company's defenses and carry out a targeted attack. Whaling is when attackers go after a big fish like a CEO. The attackers often profile the target to find the opportune moment and means of stealing login credentials. Farming is an attack that sends users to a fraudulent website that appears to be legitimate. Attackers can infect either the user's computer or the website's DNS server and redirect the user to a fake site even if the correct URL is typed in. Phishing emails will often be highly realistic and can even be copies of real emails, and hence tough to recognize. Know some tricks. Verify the email address of the sender. Check if the domain is correct. Beware if the email attempts to create a sense of urgency, such as alerting that there has been unusual activity on your account. Get cautious if the email is full of spelling and construction mistakes. If all else looks good, and the email leads you to a site, verify the domain name on the taskbar.
Do not open an email that you suspect, and if you do open and realize to be fraudulent, take a screenshot and permanently delete the email. Send a screenshot over a new email as an alert to the DPO and to the DevOps team.
In today's times, avoiding the internet is no longer a possibility. We can, however, take steps and measures to ensure our security in the World Wide Web. How can we do this? Ensure compliance with the security methods devised by the IT team. Keep yourself aware on the applicable policies and procedures such as protocols on antivirus and firewall, security patches, etc. A few handy tips to remember. Never download unknown programs. Reach the IT team for any software or hardware requirements or upgrades. Double-check a website address before you visit them. Use social media discreetly, and as per company policy. Check for HTTPS, or a padlock icon in your browser. It indicates a secure communication channel between the browser and the server on which the website is hosted. Let us now touch on antivirus protection. Please ensure that your laptops are enabled with endpoint security, and in case an assistance is required, reach out to the DevOps team for support. Another important facet of security is the use of removable media. As an organizational policy, access to removable media is need and permission-based. If you have such permissions, do ensure to use attachable storage devices discreetly. Not all media have the same information or the same value for a business. ISO recommends media disposal procedures to be proportional to their information classification level. The higher the classification, the greater is the assurance needed that the information cannot be retrieved after disposal. Shredding, or incineration of the media, or overwriting data, are examples of good practices. Information that will require secure disposal should be clearly identifiable, such as the use of watermark. A large quantity of non-sensitive information, together, can make it possible to retrieve sensitive information. This is called the aggregation effect. Example, a great number of old, published market reports, put together may allow someone to figure out a trend, related to a sensitive market strategy. Controlled access to such accumulated media, defining a short accumulation period, or small storage volume, to execute the disposal procedures as advised. ISO also recommends to keep traceability of sensitive disposed items through logs that record at a minimum who performed the procedure, when, and what method was used. For more, please refer the policy on control of documented information procedure in the docket of policies in the classroom link. It will help you know how to handle the data, who to contact should you need to discard or destroy some business information. A security incident can be anything from an active threat to an attempted intrusion, to a successful compromise or data breach. Policy violations and unauthorized access to data, such as health, financial, social security numbers, and personally identifiable records, are all examples of security incidents. Security incident management is the process of identifying, managing, recording, and analyzing these security threats or incidents in real time. The process typically starts with an alert that an incident has occurred, and with the engagement of an incident response team, IRT, responsible for its handling. Other stakeholders like the Chief Information Security Officer, the Privacy Officer, help desk personnel, the building security, are also proactively informed to ensure protective measures and procedures can be executed. Identification of potential security incidents is managed through monitoring and ensuring all incidents are reported. The identified incidents are then assessed to determine steps for risk mitigation. Based on the outcome of this step, an incident response is generated by containing, investigating, and resolving it. And lastly, the learning and key takeaways from every incident are documented.
Cloud is the storage space for data and programs that can be accessed over the internet, and that is not local on a computer's hard drive or some removable drive. There are two states of data: data at rest and data being processed or transmitted, referred to as data in motion. Either way, data must always be secure. Being a cloud-native organization, we use AWS and Microsoft as our service providers. Security is achieved through a process called data encryption. Our robust cloud data security strategy includes ensuring the security and privacy of data across networks as well as within applications, containers, workloads, and other cloud environments, where applicable. Controlling data access for all users, devices, and software. And providing complete visibility into all data on the network. In the context of data privacy, AI interacts with personal data in several ways. AI-driven systems gather vast amounts of personal data from various sources, such as social media, browsing history, and online transactions. AI processes personal data to identify patterns, predict behaviors, and generate insights for businesses and organizations. It can make decisions based on personal data, such as approving loans, filtering job applications, or personalizing marketing content. AI enhances cybersecurity by detecting fraud, monitoring for privacy violations, and identifying unusual data access patterns. Let's check out some of its broad positives and negatives in the face of data privacy and protection, and why human discretion and intelligence is important. Let us address the pros first. AI enables context-aware privacy settings that adapt based on user behavior. Smart privacy assistants can provide real-time data sharing recommendations. Machine learning models improve data classification and ensure sensitive data is properly handled. AI-powered intrusion detection systems can identify and respond to cyber threats in real time. Now, let us check out some of its downsides. AI models trained on biased data can lead to discriminatory profiling. Automated decision-making can lack transparency, making it difficult to challenge unfair outcomes. AI systems require large datasets, increasing the risk of unauthorized access. Poorly secured AI models can expose sensitive data through adversarial attacks. AI-driven profiling can violate user consent and lead to privacy invasions. AI can be potentially misused in surveillance and tracking. How can we balance AI innovation and data privacy? Following ethical AI and privacy best practices can help organizations like ours abide by the legal or regulatory frameworks like the GDPR that require transparency in AI decision-making and enforce data protection rights. Here are some steps. By integrating privacy safeguards into AI development. Through data minimization, by collecting only the necessary data to reduce privacy risks. By ensuring AI decisions can be understood and challenged. Here are some practical tips when using AI applications. Review and adjust privacy settings in AI applications. Disable the ability of the AI to train on your conversations. Do not share any personal data or company-related information with AI-powered platforms. Refrain from including metadata that could reveal sensitive details. Be aware of AI biases and question automated decisions. Use AI tools from reputable sources with strong privacy policies. Stay informed about evolving AI regulations and best practices.
Antitrust laws are designed to promote fair competition in the marketplace and prevent monopolies and collusion that may harm consumers, competitors, and the overall economy. Certain types of relationships with competitors are a serious infringement of antitrust laws and are a criminal offense in many jurisdictions and countries. Companies and/or individuals found guilty can face significant fines, civil and criminal penalties, damages, and other legal consequences. Let's understand what's prohibited. Competitors working together to eliminate competition and inflate prices. Companies agreeing to not compete in certain geographic regions, for certain types of customers, or for specific products or services. Coordinating tenders and/or agreeing on who will submit the winning bid. Monopolization and attempts to monopolize. Pricing a product or service below cost with the intention of driving competitors out of the market. Once competitors are eliminated, the predatory pricer can raise prices and recover losses. This also inhibits new entry, leading to reduced competition and thus harming consumers in the long run. A company with significant market power enforces selling of a product or service, that is, the tying product, on the condition that the buyer also purchases another product or service. If your role requires you to be involved in financial or commercial activities on behalf of Docquity, you must remember to always make decisions about pricing and commercial terms independently of competitors. Never discuss pricing or commercial terms with competitors. Never exchange confidential and commercially sensitive information, such as pricing, credits or discounts, terms of sale, capacity, production forecasts, current trading conditions, commercial strategies, identity of customers and suppliers, details of negotiations with retailers, marketing plans with competition. Indulge in fair competition, focus on innovation, quality, and customer satisfaction through the merits of the company's products and services. Refrain from entering into agreements with competitors that could be considered anti-competitive. Be thorough on your documentation practices, particularly those related to pricing, marketing, and interactions with competitors. Report potential violations to the Chief Ethics Officer, to your respective country managers, or to the founders. Seek legal advice when in doubt. To know more on the subject, please check out the company's policy on antitrust. It is available under HR documents on the HRMS.
Please visit the policies made available on the HRMS, enter HR policies, and stay apprised on the processes and procedures. Remember, not complying with approved policies is a disciplinary offense. When in doubt, speak with your manager.
To strengthen the organization's incident reporting and response mechanism, it is essential to establish an effective approach for handling non-conformities. This includes implementing the corrective and preventive actions (CARPA) framework to address data breaches systematically. By applying CARPA, organizations can not only remediate the root causes of incidents but also proactively prevent future occurrences. This structured approach enhances data protection practices and ensures compliance with applicable privacy and information security laws and regulations. Any failure to comply with data privacy policies, applicable regulations, or recognized best practices is considered a non-conformity. Let's look at a few common examples to better understand what constitutes a non-conformity. Viewing, sharing, or using patient or customer data without proper authorization or access controls. Storing personally identifiable information in unsecured locations such as personal email accounts, USB drives, or cloud services lacking appropriate safeguards. Collecting or processing personal data without obtaining clear, informed, and explicit consent from the data subject. Transmitting sensitive information, such as health records, financial data, without using secure encryption methods. Failing to report a data breach within the legally required timelines, such as those outlined in GDPR or the Regional Personal Data Protection Acts. Corrective and preventive action, CARPA, is not limited to data privacy violations. It also applies to process deviations or opportunities for improvement across business operations. Once a concern or non-conformity is identified, the requester should initiate the CARPA process by completing the CARPA request form available on the HRMS. The form should include key details such as the issuer and recipient, the method of identification, and a summary of the issue. Once submitted, the request is forwarded to the designated actioning party, who must acknowledge receipt within 24 hours. The responsible party may assemble a cross-functional team to manage the CARPA process. This team is tasked with conducting a root cause analysis, providing a detailed description of the issue, including its impact and any affected areas. Determining whether clients or stakeholders need to be informed. Documenting containment actions taken to mitigate immediate risk. Proposing corrective and preventive actions. These actions are then reviewed and approved by the original requester. All CARPA activities must be logged in the CARPA log sheet and maintained by the relevant business or functional team. Following implementation, the effectiveness of the corrective and preventive actions must be tested and verified. Regular reviews and, if necessary, revisions should be conducted as per agreed timelines. The CARPA is formally closed once all actions are validated and documented.
We are now on our 8th and the final module.
Zero trust means starting from a position of no trust, assessing the trustworthiness of the other, and granting just enough access to get a specific job done. It means gaining visibility into how every entity on a network connects to every other entity, using that information to determine authorized and unauthorized connections, and ultimately blocking the latter. Reduced cyber threats, better continuity of business-critical processes, lower operational cost, secure access, effective compliance, and a future-proof architecture are business outcomes of a zero-trust security architecture. With knowledge, and by staying aware, we can help strengthen and secure processes and thereby help the organization produce high-value results. Always remember the 5 principles of zero trust. All resources are accessed in a secure manner, regardless of location. Access control is on a need-to-know or least privilege basis, and is strictly enforced. Always verify, and never trust. Inspect, and log all network traffic. A network designed from the inside out helps uncover vulnerabilities and weaknesses in networks, applications, and endpoints. It supports security teams to monitor, remediate, and protect the systems from violations, exposure, and/or risk. The principle of security by design implies that a secure infrastructure is at the base of everything that we create or scale. A simple example could be the password creation and update policy for our email accounts, where a particular strength nomenclature is defined at the back end, and the user is required to mandatorily change the password every few months, and not repeat the same password to maintain security. Security design principles are general best practices for building a cybersecure system. Here are 10 to build a secure infrastructure. Minimize attack surface area. Establish secure defaults. Avoid security by obscurity. Don't trust services. Keep security simple. Follow the principles of least privilege and defense in depth. Fail securely. Define separation of duties. And finally, fix security issues correctly. Awareness of security ramifications and being vigilant are 2 very important components that can help us stay informed of risks and of threats. Having protective controls, security, and privacy practices in place create an environment conducive to processes and procedures. This discourages malicious behavior, protects intellectual property, and prevents loss of crucial data, thereby safeguarding the organization from costly losses, financially and in reputation. As we come to a close of this session, please remember to complete the assessment to secure your training certificate. The passing score is 70%. Please download and read the acceptable use policy. Send the signed and dated copy to the HR team and go through the information security policies. These will help ensure your adherence with the company's approach to data protection, will help you understand the management's information security strategy, goals and its objectives, and know how these support and promote their commitment to protect the organization.